Public service aspirations. The writer originally aimed for a career in public service, specifically in the DMG, District Management Group, but due to tough competition, chose to work in civil society instead. Experience in Karachi's slums. The writer learned about public service through development work in Karachi's impoverished areas like Machar Colony. The area lacked essential services like proper schools, drainage, electricity, or water. Challenges in government involvement. Despite repeated efforts, the writer found little cooperation from local government agencies. For example, although plans existed to improve infrastructure, like covering an open sewage drain, nothing was done. Social inequality in Machar Colony. Different ethnic groups in the colony faced different challenges. For instance, Bengalis, the poorest group, lived closest to the sea and worked in the shrimp trade, while Pathans and Punjabis were slightly better off. Efforts in development work. The writer's team focused on improving education and healthcare in private schools, since government schools were less cooperative, providing healthcare and raising environmental awareness, but without government backing, the efforts were insufficient. Public service in Pakistan. The writer argues that despite the presence of a few great public servants in Pakistan's history, the greatness comes from individual efforts rather than the institution itself. Frustration with current systems. After experiencing inefficiency at both the local and federal levels, the writer feels the need for urgent reforms in government institutions, but notes that those in power resist such changes for fear of losing their positions. Personal frustration with ESCO. The writer shares recent frustration with Islamabad Electric Supply Company, ESCO, illustrating how public service institutions have become unresponsive and corrupted. Systemic issues in governance. The writer criticizes the systemic failures of government agencies, noting that citizens are often complicit in the state of governance, questioning whether people deserve the rulers they get. Crux. The article reflects on the author's career in development work, particularly in Karachi's slums, where lack of government cooperation and systemic inefficiencies hampered progress. While great individual public servants exist, they are rare exceptions in a system that is resistant to change. The writer's personal experience with inefficient public agencies like ESCO reveals the deep-rooted issues in Pakistan's governance structures. There's a call for structural reform, but the powerful resist, and citizens might bear some responsibility for the state of affairs. Mysterium tremendum et fascinans, fascination and fear. The author draws a parallel between the human response to fire and our reactions to AI, both fascinating and potentially dangerous. AI's dual nature. AI is capable of great advancements, such as medical diagnoses and poetic conversations, but also holds potential for harm, including threats to jobs, privacy, and social inequities. Technology requires negotiation. Like any technology, AI needs to be properly managed and integrated into society through legal, social, and material negotiations. The potential of any technology depends on the ecosystem in which it operates. Current global ecosystem. The current world is marked by growing wealth inequality, political polarization, and environmental fragility, which could worsen due to AI. In 2022, 1.2% of the wealthiest controlled nearly 48% of global wealth, highlighting inequalities. Impact on jobs. Unlike the Industrial Revolution, which left room for skilled work, AI threatens to eliminate even intellectual and skilled jobs. The combination of AI and robotics could displace millions of jobs, including those thought to require a human touch, like teaching and nursing. Unrealistic utopian visions. The idea of a future with universal income and unlimited leisure time due to AI is questioned. People enjoy leisure after work, and without the challenges of work, the mind may become less agile and curious. Threats to democracy. AI could undermine the democratic model, as citizens may lose their say in governance if they no longer pay taxes due to unemployment or universal income. AI's unchecked power could lead to increased surveillance, warfare, and marketing exploitation. Need for negotiation. The future of AI must be negotiated through education and regulations. This includes critical thinking and understanding of power structures, as well as global and national regulations governing AI use. Role of humanities in AI. The humanities, by promoting inner reflection, social organization, and moral consequences of actions, are key to understanding and negotiating with AI. Global and national regulations. Essential regulations for AI include governance frameworks, accountability, safety protocols, privacy policies, equitable learning, and restrictions on AI use in warfare and surveillance. However, most of these regulations are not yet in place. Crux. AI is a powerful and fascinating technology, but it comes with significant risks, including job displacement, threats to democracy, and exacerbation of social inequalities. The world today is ill-equipped to handle the challenges AI brings, with growing wealth inequality and fragile political and environmental conditions. To navigate this uncertain future, we need to critically educate ourselves and establish strong global and national regulations to ensure that AI serves the greater good and does not become a tool of exploitation and control. Entrepreneurs' cost management. Entrepreneurs strive to maximize profits by minimizing costs, especially in administrative expenses like employee salaries and benefits, while ensuring product quality remains intact. Use of outsourcing. Outsourcing, including third-party contractors, toll manufacturing, and offshoring, is a common practice to cut costs and improve efficiency in businesses worldwide. Outsourcing in Pakistan. In Pakistan, outsourcing to third-party contractors has been common since the inception of the industry. Contractors often provide services at lower costs by bypassing strict labor law compliance, though this has improved over time with progressive employers ensuring compliance. Types of outsourcing. Toll manufacturing. Outsourcing production or parts of it to third parties where the company provides raw materials and the third party processes them. Offshoring. Moving business processes to another country to benefit from lower labor costs or higher skill levels. Laws and regulations. India has a Contract Labor Act 1970 that ensures contractors register with the government and comply with labor laws. In contrast, Pakistan's attempts to pass similar regulations have been weak. Ordinances in Pakistan regulate security services but lack provisions for minimum wages, working hours, and rest days. Legal judgments on outsourcing. In 2013 and 2017, landmark Supreme Court rulings in Pakistan forced companies like Fauji Fertilizer and Pakistan State Oil to regularize the employment of contract workers, ensuring fair treatment and permanent job status. Crux. Entrepreneurs aim to maximize profits by minimizing costs, often using outsourcing as a tool for cost reduction. In Pakistan, outsourcing, especially through third-party contractors, has a long history but is often marred by violations of labor laws. While progressive employers now ensure better compliance, gaps in labor regulations persist, particularly in outsourced security services. Landmark court decisions have, however, enforced the regularization of contract workers, setting a precedent for better labor rights and protections. Stronger laws and regulations are needed to protect outsourced workers and ensure fair treatment in Pakistan's labor market. Need for structural reforms. Pakistan needs structural economic reforms to achieve sustained growth, reduce poverty, and address unemployment. A growth rate of at least 6% is essential to meet the demands of its growing population and labor force. IMF misconception. There is a common belief that economic reforms are imposed solely because of the IMF. However, the reality is that Pakistan needs to reform its economy to avoid defaulting, irrespective of IMF involvement. Recurring crises. Whenever Pakistan's economy grows, it faces balance of payments crises, pushing it to seek IMF support. This cycle can only be broken with meaningful reforms. Reform challenges. The ruling elite often blocks reforms as they benefit from the current inefficient system. The political elite lacks genuine democratic representation and hesitates to impose reforms that would increase the burden on the middle and working classes. The IMF's reform conditions often worsen public hardship by forcing rapid implementation. Public stance on reforms. Contrary to popular belief, the general public is not necessarily opposed to reforms. Many are pragmatic and have adjusted to past challenges, but the lack of representation and the middle-class burden are obstacles to widespread support. International confidence. Countries like China, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia have lost confidence in Pakistan's ability to carry out reforms, and global markets remain cautious. Path forward. Pakistan must form a strong political coalition with legitimate representatives to implement long-term reforms, which will improve its standing with international markets and reduce dependency on the IMF. Crux. Pakistan's recurring economic crises are rooted in structural inefficiencies that need urgent reform. While many view IMF involvement as the catalyst for economic reforms, the real issue lies in the failure of the ruling elite to adopt necessary changes. The country requires a political coalition with legitimate leadership to enact reforms that can break the cycle of crises and reduce its reliance on external support, including the IMF. Only through consistent reform and international confidence can Pakistan achieve sustained economic growth and stability. IMF Executive Board meeting. Pakistan's request for a new $7 billion bailout is scheduled for review by the IMF Executive Board on September 25th. This announcement has helped reduce uncertainty regarding the loan. Financing assurances. Pakistan has secured financing assurances from development partners, which was a major condition for the IMF's approval of the program. The required debt rollovers from China, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, along with fresh funding of $2 billion, were pivotal. Delays and challenges. There were delays in ratifying the loan due to concerns over these financial assurances, as well as Punjab's $45 billion power subsidy, which had created friction between the government and the IMF. Accusations from Deputy PM Ishaq Dar blaming the IMF for geopolitical delays further complicated the situation. Economic impact. The IMF's announcement, coupled with a recent rate cut by the state bank, lifted investor confidence, as evidenced by the rise in stock market prices. The loan is viewed as a temporary solution to avert Pakistan's looming insolvency. Coalition government struggles. The loan approval is crucial for the Sharif government, which is facing a legitimacy crisis and needs to improve economic performance. However, continued borrowing is not a long-term solution for the country's underlying structural problems. Possible mini-budget. Reports suggest that the government may introduce a supplementary budget to meet IMF revenue targets, which could place an additional tax burden on both corporations and individual taxpayers. Recurring bailouts. This bailout will not be the last, as the country's economic instability and failure to implement meaningful fiscal reforms mean that reliance on external funding will continue. Crux. Pakistan's upcoming IMF bailout of $7 billion, expected to be approved on September 25th, provides temporary relief from a financial crisis. Despite the secured financing assurances, structural economic issues remain unaddressed, and reports suggest a looming mini-budget will place further strain on taxpayers. This bailout will not be the last unless long-term fiscal and economic reforms are implemented. Media under pressure. In recent years, media owners and newsroom decision-makers in Pakistan have faced growing pressures from certain state institutions. These pressures often lead to compromised editorial judgment, with demands to censor or modify coverage. Supreme Court summons. Recently, the Supreme Court summoned the owners and senior executives of 34 television channels regarding the broadcast of speeches deemed contemptuous of the judiciary. Lawmakers Faisal Vada and Mustafa Kamal had made these speeches during a confrontation between the judiciary and the government. Apologies and compliance. While the lawmakers issued quick apologies and were let off with warnings, the media houses were required to air public apologies during primetime slots, citing court orders to comply with the Supreme Court's directive. Challenge to media independence. This incident highlights the ongoing challenge of preserving editorial independence in an environment of external influence. The media industry must reflect on how to protect its credibility and resist pressure. Call for unity. The episode offers an opportunity for media owners and decision-makers to unite and resist undue influence, just as they demonstrated unity in their collective apology to the court. Such solidarity is necessary to protect their platforms' independence and uphold journalistic principles. Impact on credibility and media freedom. Without collective resolve, the credibility of media channels will continue to erode, affecting both their reputation and the broader landscape of media freedom in Pakistan. Crux. Media houses in Pakistan face increasing pressures from state institutions that challenge their editorial independence. A recent contempt case involving speeches by lawmakers has underscored the need for media owners to unite in resisting external influence to protect their platform's credibility and the broader principles of media freedom. State involvement in extremism. The struggle to eliminate extremism is undermined when state representatives, like police officers, engage in extremist acts, as seen in the recent murder of a man accused of blasphemy by a police officer in Quetta. Details of the incident. The suspect, arrested for allegedly making sacrilegious remarks, was attacked after religious parties led a mob to besiege the police station. The police shifted the suspect, but a police officer at the new location shot and killed him. Threat to rule of law. When individuals or state officials take the law into their own hands, it leads to mob rule and anarchy. The Quetta case echoes past incidents, including the 2011 murder of Punjab Governor Salman Taseer by his police guard and the recent mob killing in Swat, where a blasphemy suspect was set on fire. De-radicalization need. These incidents highlight the urgent need for de-radicalizing society. Pakistan is one of the few Muslim-majority countries where such violence occurs, showing a dangerous pattern of taking justice into individual hands. Role of state and religious scholars. The state and religious scholars, ulema, must emphasize that only the law can adjudicate blasphemy cases, and that individuals acting as executioners cannot be tolerated. Misuse of blasphemy laws to settle personal disputes requires strong, decisive action. Crux. The recent killing of a blasphemy suspect by a police officer in Quetta highlights the severe challenges Pakistan faces in combating extremism. The state and religious scholars must work together to enforce the rule of law, prevent mob violence, and de-radicalize society to stop the exploitation of sensitive issues like blasphemy for personal vendettas.